You see, there comes a point in every person's life where they realize, despite their best efforts, there are some things they simply cannot control. It might be a situation at work, a relationship that feels like it's slipping away, or a health concern that keeps you up at night. And in these moments, no matter how strong, how wise, or how resourceful we are, we find ourselves exhausted, wondering, what more can I do? Surrendering to God's authority is one of the most profound acts of faith a person can make. It may seem counterintuitive to our human nature, where we are often conditioned to believe that success and fulfillment come only through hard work, effort, and control. We want to be in charge of our lives, make our own decisions, and forge our own paths. But as we journey through life, we begin to encounter moments where no amount of striving seems to work. There are situations beyond our control circumstances that leave us feeling powerless, confused, or even defeated. It is in these moments that we are invited to step into a greater understanding of what it truly means to surrender to God's divine authority. Surrender is not about giving up or resigning ourselves to failure. It is about shifting our mindset from one of self-reliance to one of God-reliance. When you surrender, you are acknowledging that there is a higher power at work, a divine plan that supersedes your own. You are recognizing that while you can control your efforts, you cannot control the outcomes. God, who created the universe and holds everything in his hands, knows far more than we do. He sees the full picture while we only see a limited part. Imagine this: you are on a vast ocean, steering your boat toward a distant shore. You have a destination in mind, and you believe you know the best way to get there. But as you sail, storms arise, winds change direction, and suddenly you find yourself lost or off course. In that moment, you can either keep struggling against the elements, trying to force your way through the storm, or you can stop, release control of the rudder, and allow the ocean's currents, God's guidance, take over. This is what surrender looks like. You're not giving up on your journey. You're simply trusting that God knows the best route to your destination, even if it's not the one you originally planned. When you surrender to God's authority, you are saying, I trust you, Lord. I trust that you know what I don't, that your wisdom is greater than mine, and that your plan for me is perfect, even when I can't see it. This is a powerful act of humility. It requires us to set aside our egos and our need for control, understanding that we are not the center of the universe God is. He is the one who holds the answers, who sees the beginning from the end, and who works all things together for our good. In surrender, there is also an invitation to release the burden of worry and anxiety. So much of our stress comes from trying to control things we were never meant to control. We worry about the future, about how situations will unfold, about whether or not we will succeed. But the truth is, when you surrender to God, you are placing those worries into His capable hands. You are saying, God, I know that you are in control of my life, and I trust that you will guide me to where I need to be. This act of surrender doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. It doesn't mean you stop working hard or stop making an effort. Rather, it means that your efforts are now aligned with a higher purpose. You do your part, but you also recognize that God's authority is at work in every situation. You move forward with faith, not fear. You take steps of action, but you leave the results to God, knowing that His plans are perfect and His timing is always right. Surrendering to God's authority also opens the door to greater blessings. When we hold on too tightly to our own plans, we can miss out on the opportunities that God has in store for us. But when we let go, we allow God to work in ways that exceed our expectations. His authority is not limited by our human understanding. He can make a way where there seems to be no way. He can open doors that no one can shut and close those doors that would lead us down the wrong path. Surrendering to His authority positions us to receive His divine guidance and blessings. Surrendering to God's authority builds trust. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and our relationship with God is no different. The more we surrender to Him, the more we surrender to Him, the more we experience His faithfulness in our lives. We begin to see that He truly does know what is best for us, and our faith grows stronger as a result. Trusting in God's authority allows us to live with peace and confidence, knowing that no matter what happens, He is in control and His plans for us are good. Surrendering to God's authority is not a sign of weakness. It is a demonstration of faith and trust in His infinite wisdom and love. It frees us from the need to control everything and opens the door to experiencing the fullness of His plan for our lives. When we surrender, we are choosing to trust God's authority over our own, and in doing so, we align ourselves with His divine purpose. And when we let God take control, we can be confident that He will lead us to a place of peace, provision, and blessings beyond what we could ever imagine. Trusting in God's timing is one of the most challenging yet rewarding aspects of faith. We live in a world where instant results are valued and often expected. We want things to happen on our schedule, according to our plans, and at the pace we prefer. But when it comes to the way God works, His timing is perfect, even when it seems to be delayed or different from what we envisioned. To trust in God's timing is to believe that He knows exactly when things should happen in our lives, even when we don't understand why certain events are delayed or why we must wait longer than expected. At the heart of trusting God's timing is the understanding that God is not bound by time in the same way we are. He operates in eternity, where the past, present, and future are all within His view. While we are often focused on what is immediately in front of us or the next goal we hope to achieve, God sees the entire picture of our lives. He knows what we need when we need it and what is best for us in the long run. This understanding should bring us comfort, but in moments of uncertainty, it can be difficult to surrender our desires for immediate results to the greater wisdom of His timing. One of the primary reasons we struggle with trusting God's timing is that we often equate waiting with inactivity or stagnation. We think that if things aren't happening now, then nothing is happening at all. But this couldn't be further from the truth. In the periods of waiting, God is often doing His most important work both within us and in the circumstances around us. The waiting period is not wasted time, it is a time of preparation, growth, and development. Just as a seed must be buried in the soil and given time to germinate before it can sprout, there are many things in our lives that require time to take root before they come to fruition. In these times of waiting, God may be working on our character, refining us in ways that will prepare us for the blessings He has in store. We may not see it, but He is shaping our patience, strengthening our faith, and teaching us to trust Him more deeply. If God were to grant us everything we wanted on our own timetable, we might not be ready to handle it. A blessing received prematurely can sometimes turn into a burden. But when we trust in God's timing, we can rest in the assurance that when the blessing comes, it will be at the right time and we will be prepared to receive it fully. Another challenge we face is that we often mistake delays for denials. We assume that if God hasn't answered our prayers in the time frame we expected, He must be saying no, but a delay is not the same as a denial. Sometimes God says wait because there are things happening behind the scenes that we cannot see. There may be factors He is aligning, people He is preparing, or opportunities He is creating that need time to develop. What we perceive as a delay is often God's way of setting things in motion for a greater outcome than we could have imagined. The story of Joseph in the Bible is a powerful example of trusting God's timing. Joseph was given a dream at a young age that he would one day rise to a position of great authority. But instead of seeing that dream fulfilled immediately, Joseph endured years of hardship, being sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. From a human perspective, it seemed as though Joseph's life was going in the opposite direction of his dream. Yet through it all, Joseph remained faithful, trusting that God was in control of his life. In time, God elevated Joseph to a position of power in Egypt, fulfilling the dream He had given him many years earlier. Had Joseph given up or lost faith during the difficult times, he might never have seen the fulfillment of God's promise. But because he trusted in God's timing, he was able to experience the fullness of God's plan. Trusting in God's timing also teaches us the virtue of patience. Patience is not just the ability to wait, it's how we behave while we are waiting. When we trust that God's timing is perfect, we can wait with a sense of peace and assurance, knowing that He is working all things together for our good. We don't have to force outcomes or manipulate situations to get what we want. Instead, we can rest in the knowledge that God's plan is unfolding as it should. Patience allows us to let go of the anxiety and stress that often accompany uncertainty, replacing it with a quiet confidence in God's perfect timing. When we trust in God's timing, we allow ourselves to experience divine interruptions. Sometimes what we see as a delay or a detour is actually an invitation for something greater. God may be redirecting us to an opportunity or a path that is far better than what we had planned. But if we are too focused on our own timeline, we may miss the opportunities that God is placing before us. Trusting His timing means being open to His leading, even when it takes us in a direction we didn't anticipate. Trusting in God's timing is a fundamental aspect of faith. It requires us to relinquish control, surrender our timelines, and believe that God's plans for us are good. While waiting can be difficult, it is often in the waiting that God does His greatest work preparing us, shaping us, and positioning us for the blessings He has in store. When we trust His timing, we open ourselves to His perfect will and allow Him to lead us into the fullness of His plan for our lives. When you let God handle your challenges, you release the burden of trying to control everything on your own. Life is full of moments where we face difficulties that seem overwhelming, moments when we feel like we're fighting battles we aren't equipped to win, facing obstacles we cannot overcome on our own. It's natural in these times to feel stressed, anxious, and even defeated. But there is a powerful shift that occurs when you decide to let God handle it. It's an act of surrender that transforms not only your circumstances, but also your inner state of mind. By letting God take control, you acknowledge that you don't have to carry the weight of every struggle on your shoulders. You recognize that God, in His infinite wisdom and power, is more than capable of managing whatever challenges you face. This is not about giving up or avoiding responsibility. It's about understanding that while you have a role to play, you are not alone in the battle. God is with you, guiding you and working on your behalf, even when you don't see it immediately. One of the most liberating aspects of letting God handle your challenges is the freedom from worry and anxiety. We often exhaust ourselves trying to figure out every solution, plan every step, and control every outcome. But there are situations in life that are simply beyond our human ability to control. Whether it's a health issue, a relationship struggle, financial difficulty, or uncertainty about the future, there are times when no amount of human effort can resolve the problem. This is where letting God handle it becomes essential. When you entrust your challenges to Him, you are essentially saying, God, I can't fix this on my own, but I trust that you can. This act of trust allows you to step out of the constant cycle of worry and anxiety. You no longer have to stay up at night trying to figure out how things will work out. Instead, you can rest in the peace that comes from knowing that God is in control. He sees the bigger picture, and He is working all things together for your good. Letting God handle your challenges is not passive. It's an active decision to trust Him fully, believing that He has a plan, and that His plan is better than anything you could create on your own. Another significant aspect of letting God handle your challenges is the realization that He often works in ways that are beyond our understanding. God's ways are higher than our ways, and His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. What we perceive as a setback or a failure might actually be part of God's larger plan to bring about a greater victory. Sometimes He allows us to go through difficult seasons, not because He wants to punish us, but because He is preparing us for something greater. These challenges can be opportunities for growth, for strengthening our faith, and for deepening our relationship with Him. When you let God handle your challenges, you also open yourself up to His solutions, which are often far better than anything you could have imagined. We tend to limit ourselves by thinking that there's only one way out of a situation or that success can only look a certain way. But God, in His creativity and sovereignty, often brings about solutions that are unexpected and beyond our comprehension. He can open doors that you never even knew existed. He can make a way where there seemed to be no way. And He can turn what looked like a loss into a victory. The surrender to God's handling of your challenges also builds your faith. Every time you let go and let God take control, you are exercising your faith muscle. You are reminding yourself that God is trustworthy, that He is faithful, and that He will never leave you or forsake you. Over time, as you continue to let God handle the difficulties in your life, you will begin to see a pattern emerge. God comes through time and time again. He may not always answer in the way you expect, but he always answers in the way that is best for you. Letting God handle your challenges doesn't mean you do nothing. It doesn't mean you stop putting in effort or that you sit back and wait passively. What it does mean is that your efforts are now aligned with God's guidance. You work, but you work from a place of peace, not panic. You take action, but you do so with the assurance that God is leading you. You stop trying to force outcomes and instead follow the promptings of His Spirit, trusting that He is directing your steps. When you let God handle your challenges, you position yourself to experience His strength in your weakness. The Apostle Paul wrote about how God's power is made perfect in our weakness. When we admit that we can't do it all on our own and invite God to take control, we make space for His strength to be displayed in our lives. His grace becomes sufficient for us, and His power begins to work through us in ways we never thought possible. We no longer have to rely solely on our own limited abilities because we are tapping into the unlimited power of God. Letting God handle your challenges is a transformative act of faith. It lifts the burden off your shoulders, frees you from anxiety, and invites God's divine intervention into your life. You don't have to have all the answers, and you don't have to carry every problem on your own. When you trust God with your challenges, you give Him permission to work in ways that are far beyond your imagination. You align yourself with His greater plan and experience the peace, strength, and provision that only He can provide. And as you continue to let God handle the difficulties in your life, your faith will grow stronger, and you will witness His faithfulness in ways that leave you in awe. When you let God take control, you tap into a level of peace and clarity that surpasses human understanding. This is not just a temporary relief from the stresses and anxieties that life can bring. It is a deep, abiding sense of calm that only comes when you truly trust in a power greater than yourself. Often we live in a constant state of tension, worrying about what will happen next, fearing the unknown, and trying to control every outcome. But when you relinquish control to God, you are invited into a state of peace that transcends the chaos of life. This peace is not dependent on external circumstances. It does not waver when things don't go as planned, nor is it shattered by unexpected challenges. Rather, it is a peace rooted in the knowledge that God is sovereign, that He is in control, and that His plans for your life are good. Even when everything around you seems uncertain or when difficulties arise, you can remain centered in this peace because you trust that God is guiding you through it all. Letting go and letting God take control also brings with it a profound clarity. When you're overwhelmed by life's challenges, your mind can become clouded with confusion, doubt, and fear. You may find yourself overthinking every decision, unsure of which path to take or how to resolve a particular issue. But when you let God lead, He brings clarity to the confusion. His direction becomes clear, and your mind is freed from the fog of uncertainty. This doesn't mean that you will always have immediate answers or that every decision will suddenly become easy, but it does mean that you will have the assurance that God is directing your steps. You can trust His guidance, knowing that He will make the way clear in His time. In addition to peace and clarity, surrendering control to God also opens up space for divine wisdom to flow into your life. Human wisdom is limited by our experiences, our knowledge, and our perspective. We can only see so far ahead, and we often make decisions based on what we think is best in the moment. But God's wisdom is limitless. He sees the entire picture, knows the end from the beginning, and understands how every piece of the puzzle fits together. When you let God take control, you allow His wisdom to guide your choices, your actions, and your direction in life. You no longer have to rely solely on your own understanding, which can often be flawed or incomplete. Instead, you can tap into the infinite wisdom of the Creator, who knows what is best for you in every situation. Letting God take control doesn't mean you lose your sense of direction or purpose. On the contrary, it means your path becomes more defined. You no longer have to second-guess your every move or worry that you're heading in the wrong direction. God's guidance brings a sense of purpose and intentionality to your life that is far greater than what you could achieve on your own. You begin to see that every step you take, even the ones that seem small or insignificant, is part of a larger plan that God is orchestrating. Each decision, each opportunity, each challenge becomes a stepping stone toward the fulfillment of His purpose for your life. When you let God take control, you are no longer burdened by the need to have everything figured out. One of the greatest sources of stress in life is the pressure to solve every problem, find every answer, and ensure that every plan works perfectly. But the truth is, we are not designed to carry that burden. We are not meant to know all the answers or to control every outcome. By handing control over to God, you release the pressure to perform and to have all the solutions. You embrace the fact that it's okay not to know everything because you serve a God who does. This release allows you to live with greater freedom and joy, unencumbered by the weight of trying to manage everything on your own. Another beautiful aspect of letting God take control is that it enables you to live with an open heart and an open mind. When we try to control everything, we often limit ourselves to what we think is possible. We create narrow pathways for our lives based on our limited perspective of what can or should happen. But God's plans for us are far greater than anything we could imagine. His vision for our lives is expansive and full of possibilities that we may not have considered. When you let go of control, you open yourself up to the infinite possibilities that God has in store. You allow Him to surprise you, to lead you into new and unexpected directions, and to bless you in ways that far exceed your expectations. Letting God take control also deepens your faith. Trusting Him in the face of uncertainty requires faith, but it is in those moments of surrender that your faith grows stronger. Each time you choose to let go of your need to control and allow God to take the reins, you are exercising your faith muscle. You are putting your belief in His goodness, His wisdom, and His love into action. Over time, this practice of faith builds a deep and unshakable trust in God. You begin to see His faithfulness in every area of your life. And this strengthens your confidence in Him, no matter what comes your way. Letting God take control brings peace, clarity, and wisdom into your life. It frees you from the burden of trying to manage everything on your own and opens you up to the fullness of His divine plan. As you surrender control, you experience a sense of calm that cannot be shaken by external circumstances, and you gain the clarity and direction you need to navigate life's challenges. God's wisdom becomes your guide, and His purpose for your life becomes clearer with every step you take. In trusting Him, you not only find peace, but you also discover the joy and freedom that comes from living in alignment with His perfect will. When you choose to leave it in God's hands and let Him handle the challenges, you unlock a profound sense of peace, clarity, and divine guidance. Life's uncertainties and burdens no longer weigh you down as you surrender control to the One who knows all and sees all. Trusting God to lead you through life's trials doesn't mean you are passive. It means you're aligning yourself with His higher wisdom and greater plan. As you let go of the need to control, you open yourself to His limitless possibilities, experience growth in faith, and witness His faithfulness in ways beyond your imagination. This act of surrender empowers you to live with a renewed sense of purpose, free from anxiety and anchored in the assurance that God is working everything out for your good. Trust Him, and you'll see that when you let God handle it, you will find the peace, clarity, and fulfillment your soul longs for.